News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. From Lego clubs and traditional reading competitions, literacy programs for adults and programs for teens, to many events throughout the year, the North Logan Library has set the bar high in the community. On KVNU's For the People program on Monday, Library Director James Britch and Public Services and Events Coordinator Heidi Taylor were our guests. They have a fundraiser coming up at the end of the month entitled the Regency Dinner and Ball, a Jane Austen-themed event that will be held at the Riverwoods Conference Center on January 27th. Taylor says they hope a lot of people turn out.
We're really excited for this. We just have a lot of patrons that love historical romance, which is Regency. And so we're trying to make it so there was fun upcoming fundraising events where they could enjoy coming to them and supporting the library at the same time. So we have a lot of staff too that read historical romance as well. Sure. And so it's been really fun to, brainstorm ideas and work together as a team.
At the event, Regency attire is encouraged, and Britch explained what that looks like.
Basically, if you go and watch some Jane Austen movies,
you'll see it.
You'll see it. You'll get a good idea of what this is all about. Mm-hmm. And even it's such a popular genre right now. Even Netflix, they have a popular show called Bridgerton.
Yeah.
And that's in this era, although that's a bit different than what we're going for. We're trying to go for a more authentic, more Jane Austen-ish feel to it.
Keynote speaker at the event will be Julianne Donaldson, author of Edenbrook. The cost is $135 per person or $105 for North Logan Library card holders. The fundraiser is for adults 18 and older, but teens 15 and older may come if accompanied by an adult chaperone. All proceeds go towards the library's new community center. KVNU News Time is 4:07. KVNU weather for tonight. Winter weather advisory stays in effect until 5 p.m. tomorrow. Rain this evening, then snow and rain after midnight. Could see an inch accumulation, low around 30. And a 40% chance of snow in the morning Wednesday, mid-30s for the high. Partly cloudy, colder Wednesday night, Thursday morning, low around 20. Partly sunny skies on Thursday, high in the upper 30s. It's been to 38. Right now it's 34 at KVNU. January clearance is going on at U&I Furniture. Lots of closeouts, really good value store-wide. Pick out a chair. They have lift chairs, accent chairs, rocker recliners, a big selection. For over 90 years, there's always a better buy at U&I, 28 West, 1st North, downtown Logan.
The colder weather is here. Are your quilts and blankets looking dingy? Is your winter coat or jacket dirty enough to stand in the corner just by itself? Well, go to Mount Logan Laundry. It'll take no time at all to freshen up everything. They have the 55 and 80-pound washers, the biggest around, and great big dryers, too, and it costs a whole lot less than dry cleaning. Free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town on the corner of 5th East, 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham at 1st East, 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry.
KVNU News Time is 4:08. A record-breaking amount of doses of fentanyl were seized last year across several Rocky Mountain states, and federal officials reported purchasing the potentially deadly drug is becoming easier. The Drug Enforcement Administration's Rocky Mountain Division encompasses Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. In total, the division seized 5.8 million doses of fentanyl in 2022, which equates to 619,000 fentanyl pills and about 150 pounds of fentanyl powder. Special Agent in charge, Brian Besser of the Rocky Mountain Division, explained in a press release that geographically, the Rocky Mountain Division is on the front lines of saving lives from fentanyl. Nationally, DEA announced more than 370 million doses of potentially deadly fentanyl were seized, which is enough fentanyl to kill every American. In November, DEA reported a sharp increase in the lethality of the fentanyl pills. The warning came after testing revealed 6 out of 10 pills contained a deadly dose of the drug. And Lori Vallow Daybell says she was not present when her children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, died, and she requested to meet with her husband, Chad Daybell, as their joint trial approaches. Both Chad and Lori have pleaded not guilty in connection to the deaths of Lori's children, along with Chad's late wife, Tammy Daybell. New court documents filed last week by Lori Daybell's attorney state she was in her apartment in Rexburg, Idaho, when J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan died in the apartment of Alan Cox in Rexburg. Cox was Daybell's brother and died suddenly in December 2019. His sudden and mysterious death was soon after the disappearances of Tylee and J.J. KVNU News Time is 4:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Updates every 30 minutes and breaking news as it happens. News Talk KVNU, your number one radio station for news and talk.
Where do you turn for help when you have ear, nose, or throat issues? Doctors Kaiser or Wilson at Intermountain Healthcare, Budge Clinic ENT are trusted names throughout Cache Valley. Their 5-star reviews tell the story. One person wrote, Dr. Wilson answered all of my questions and was very thorough. Another person wrote, Dr. Wilson took time to ask a lot of questions and figure out what was going on. For more information about Doctors Kaiser or Wilson, search Budge Clinic ENT on the web. Doctors Kaiser and Wilson provide local care with Intermountain expertise.
It's never too late or too cold to get rid of that old vehicle. Now is the time to earn extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles by paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204. That's 787-1204 today. See store for details.
There's a lot going on right now, and broadcasters are on the ground, covering all of it, bringing you the weather, the traffic, and breaking news, all while entertaining you 24 hours a day. Someone needs to tell you what's going on around the world and in our hometowns. And that someone is us. We are free radio. We are always there. We are broadcasters. Visit wearebroadcasters.com or text radio to 52886 to learn more. Furnished by NAB and this station.
This is Police Chief Gary Jensen from Logan City Police Department. A number of scams are occurring throughout our city and county. These scams are highly emotional and demand immediacy that you pay, and you pay now. They will say they are from the IRS, the Sheriff's Office, the Police Department, utility companies, medical facilities, or even romance scams. The scammers do their homework. They can do a simple check on the internet of your name and find out where you live, where you used to live, even people that are associated with your name. They are always highly emotional phone calls that demand immediate payment or something bad will happen. Slow down and diffuse by asking questions. If they want you to pay with Bitcoin or gift cards, this is a scam. Be careful. Hang up the phone call is the best thing that you can do. Again, slow down and think. React by hanging up and don't become a victim.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Tuesday, January 10th. Appreciate everyone tuning in today. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well. A little slushy out there as temperatures dip a bit tonight. It maybe icy in some spots. I wanted to throw this little warning out, though. Last night, as I was leaving, Bill said, "Hey, let me know if the roads are bad for my newscasts through the evening." And I reported to you, Bill, that the roads were actually pretty decent, just wet from the rain, but not too icy. A little slush here and there, but nothing bad. What was bad, really bad, is and this is something we should all be used to, but at the corner of 2nd North and 1st West, as I headed up towards Main Street from the station here.
So just right by the post office there.
Basically, yeah. And except on the south side of 2nd North.
Oh, okay.
It was a lake, and I watched a car as I was stopped at the light there on 1st West, so I had a bird's eye view of this as it happened. I watched a car come up to that intersection a little too fast for driving into a lake, but they didn't see the lake. It was dark. And I watched the wall of water that they pushed into the air, and they lost a bit of control because under that water was a little slush and ice. The snow and the ice oftentimes plowed off the roads then builds up and can even block those drainage gutters. And so something to watch for as we get, it was raining just a bit more even as I made my way to the station today. So with all this moisture and all this water running off, just remember that it doesn't always have somewhere to run. And that was something I noticed in quite a few intersections as I made my way down Main Street. So
and we have a little bit more on the way. The good news is, though, after a chance of snow tomorrow morning, it looks like we're done for several days.
Yeah. And then it comes back. I was looking at every year, Bill, I swear. Well, not for the last two, but the film festival is in person again this year, and so I plan to attend. I'll be off the show here for a couple of days in a couple of weeks, and I was looking at the long-term forecast, and of course, it's going to snow on those days when I'll be driving to Park City from here, so it's just a given.
Always fun trying to negotiate parleys.
Yeah, it's I generally try to go up through Weber Canyon and
there you
in
go.
the back way, but that I need to check into that. Last I'd heard that was closed down to one lane for long stretches until April as they redo the bridge there by Devil's Slide, but I don't know if that's still going on. So I'll have to do some checking into that. But one final note as well on traffic. I saw a fender bender today. No one was hurt, thankfully, but what was noteworthy about this is, so I was behind the car that was in the fender bender, and it had been wrecked previously. Someone had slammed into the back of it previously. No license plate, missing a tail light, or at least the enclosure around the light. The light was working, the bulb was working, and then it had obviously been crunched before. And then as we were sitting at this light, the driver of that car decided to change lanes. We were stationary. We weren't moving. Driver decided to change lanes and did a pretty abrupt lane change and wasn't able to get entirely over into the lane before the car that the driver didn't see slammed into the back of this already slammed into the back of car. And so as a witness, I did my duty, and I said, I rolled my window down, and I said, I saw what happened. Do you guys need me to,
Did you yell at the one person you're an idiot for trying to do that maneuver?
I didn't have to, because that driver gets out of the car, and he turns to the driver he'd pulled out in front of at this red light, making a lane change when everyone was stopped and didn't see this car coming up on our left. And he gets out of the car and says to the other driver, "This is exactly how my first accident happened just last week." And I wanted to say, "Sir, sir, the universe is trying to teach you a lesson. Don't do what you just did." And you just confess that this is the second time in 10 days you've done the same thing and been hit the exact same way. And, other driver was not impressed with that confession.
He didn't really feel sorry for the person.
No, there were no smiles on her face. She was, obviously her day had been upended by this. Not a lot of damage to her car, but she was going to be there a bit. And, so...
It's just one of those
I don't even know what to say
kind of experiences. Like, did this really just happen?
Yeah, we all do dumb things. We all do things that we, in hindsight, know, we shouldn't have done that. I've had some close calls where I did something dumb and narrowly missed being in some sort of a fender bender and thought, whew, that was a freebie. I try not to judge in that respect, but if you get in an accident one way and then you do that exact same thing the next week,
you obviously haven't learned
and get in the same accident.
Yeah,
it's time to reassess your life choices or how you're making them. At least,
yeah, you don't want to be doing next week saying, this is what's happened the previous 2 weeks.
Yeah,
the same things happened.
It was.
You don't want to be that person.
Yeah, I honestly, I just didn't even know what to say. I just extracted myself from the conversation, withdrew my offer to be of assistance. There were other witnesses, other passengers in both cars, and it was pretty obvious who was at fault in this situation. And I went about my day. So, all right. Yesterday we spoke with Senator Chris Wilson. He gave us a legislative preview on the things he'll be working on, some of the things other lawmakers are promising to present that he's keeping a close eye on. His recent appointment to the Great Salt Lake group. This is a caucus that will be working on Great Salt Lake-related legislation and funding, and he's been appointed to that or has joined that caucus to have a voice for Cache Valley there in the discussion, which is going to be important because we could, inadvertently be harmed by certain decisions that were good for the lake if not done carefully. That was a great conversation, but it is underway in a week from today, and Senator Wilson, all of our representatives in the House here in Cache Valley, Senator Sandel, who represents a sliver of the south end of Cache Valley for some reason, they all are going to be there surrounded by their peers. 65 others in the House, in contrast to our 4 House representatives, and then, 67 others, and 20, I'm doing the math here quick, 24 others for our senators. So few voices among many. What is coming down the pike from other parts of the state? We'll talk about that later on in the show. Governor Cox hosted a symposium on social media and youth mental health today. We've got some highlights of that coming up as well. It was a really interesting discussion that really kept coming back to again and again the state having few options as far as policy goes. But when it comes to funding, mental health services, public education campaigns, and more, the state has quite a few options. Expect these to come up in the legislative session, but a discussion of experts, a panel, symposium, he called it, put together by Governor Cox on social media and youth mental health. Some highlights coming up later on in the show. After the break, we'll get things rolling for real here with your headlines and smooth jazz right after this.
Hi, this is Drew Allen with Allen Mortuaries. Over the years, thousands of families have planned ahead with Allen Mortuaries. Planning ahead helps you make informed and thoughtful decisions. It also spares your family the stress of making these decisions under the pressure of time and strong emotions. Allen Mortuaries' secure pre-need trust plan can save you nearly 40% versus other plans. Keep it simple, safe, and secure. Go with the proven choice, Allen Mortuaries. Voted best funeral home in Cache Valley in northern Utah. Allen Mortuaries. Then, now, always.
When it comes to home care, it's important to know you have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of hospice or home health services, remember that Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient as well as the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call to schedule a free consultation. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, your local hospice and home health provider since 2006.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Coming up, highlights from Governor Cox's symposium on social media and youth mental health. This played out online today, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I believe Instagram. The goal was to get as many people as possible playing along and discussing the state's options and get expert opinion on what policy or public funding could do to improve mental health when it comes to social media and youth use. Some highlights from that coming up. Right now, though, dialing the temperature down as much as we can, and yet still covering the biggest headlines of the day with your headlines and smooth jazz. Isn't that beautiful? Those first few chords.
It just, if there's any anxiety, it just kind of oozes out of you.
That's right. Story from Cache Valley. Not good news for several residents in the Smithfield area. The Smithfield sewage-flooded houses are not covered by city insurance. To say the least, have some residents fuming. The homes were damaged to a large extent by, we'll put it this way. There was a call about the incident, and according to the report filed by Smithfield Police Officer Chase Hammond, Herald Journal reports, the outpour of water was voluminous and intense, enough to create potholes in the road. The water, of course, traveled along the edges of the road, and gallons of it sank into a nearby manhole, and the water then overwhelmed that little underground exchange, and that's what ended up flushed down the sewer system, overwhelming the system itself. Sewer lines split, and several nearby homes were affected in the Smithfield area where this happened. One of the street's residents, the Herald Journal reports, chose not to comment for legal reasons, came home from his job at a disaster relief company only to call his own co-workers to his home to help the situation, filling his and his neighbors' basements. Imagine, without description, what they were dealing with. But when storm waters or a broken line like this from the city's part flood the system and flood the sewer lines and break those lines, everything comes backwards. We'll put it that way. So, unfortunately, though, more than 3 months later after this incident that we reported on here at CacheValleyDaily.com, the neighbors, residents whose basements were affected, facing massive costs because of the incident, are reporting little assistance from the city. Claims filed through the municipality's insurance have only been offered $5,000 total claim. Residents are saying this is not enough to repair the damage that they say the city is responsible for. We'll see where this goes. In one case, by the way, the flooding destroyed a furnace and a hot water heater, a washer, and a dryer. That's $5,000 right there. So hope these residents are able to make this right. The January 6th audiobook is out. Want some exciting listening? I'm a proponent, though it's not exciting. I'm a proponent of exposing yourself to these reports. You can go all the way back to massive government investigation and reporting, back to the Vietnam War. There are several in between in the 80s and 90s, and of course, the big 9/11 Commission report is another example. The Mueller report. The reason I say expose yourself to these is, one, it'll remind you to step outside of the taint of partisan politics, because these reports are done by bipartisan committees, and they are just fact collecting and then fact reporting missions. They don't even always make recommendations, although most do. And they can be fascinating, not only on the subject that they're digging into and reporting on, but on the workings of government in general. But what's interesting about this announcement today that the January 6th investigation is out now as an audiobook, that's not new. But what is this was such a lengthy report after more than 2 years of investigation. It took 23 producers and 9 different narrators to actually complete this in audiobook format because it is that long. Check it out if you'd like to listen. It's available pretty much everywhere. You can buy a copy or get a copy from your library in audiobook form. If you'd prefer ebook, good luck. That's a lot of page flipping. Digital versions are available also. One of the big issues that's going to be coming up in the legislative session is an issue that has been a can of worms, I should say, that has been cracked open before, and no one enjoyed the experience. But the question is here again, this time in the courts, and depending on what the courts decide to do and when, the state Supreme Court didn't say when they would rule, but if it happens to be during the legislative session and in time for new legislation to be sponsored, you might expect an immediate legislative response. The question is, whose river is it? This is a long-running stream bed access fight. Our own former lawmaker Kurt Webb once tried to resolve this and got filleted by the side he didn't make happy. Others have tried the same thing and had the opposite result by the other side not being happy. It's a very contentious issue, and it pits property rights and the right of a property owner to protect their property, and the fact that all of us own the rivers. The question is, though, what does that mean? Resolutions, quote unquote, that have been legislatively thrown out there before in statute say, an angler, for example, a fisherman, can be on the stream bed even if that stream is running in between chunks of private property. The stream bed is not private property and never will be. But that does mean if you've ever waded a river fishing or watched someone do it or floated a river on a tube, there are times when you have to get out, to move around an obstacle, to move around an area you can't walk through. And so what that means is oftentimes fishermen especially are getting out and walking across private property and then back down into the river. That is basically what's behind this protracted legal fight, hinging on that argument of whether the recreating public has a right to access the streams or rivers, even if they cross private property of landowners to get there. The hearing, which took place yesterday, was short. Both sides presented their case in oral arguments to the Utah Supreme Court, and justices are basically being asked to determine if the 4th District Court made a mistake when it dismissed a case involving the assertion that because navigating public waterways was a widespread practice, a public easement exists, meaning there's a portion of land, a few feet even, on the side of each river that the public has access to and private landowners cannot block. So we'll see where this goes, but it's surely going to be a very contentious issue, to say the least. Finally, bad news for Saratoga Springs city leaders. There's no soft way to put this. It looks like Saratoga Springs officials have been caught covering for the police chief. And, of course, CYA on their own part, having appointed the chief themselves, hoping, I would guess, that this issue goes away before it becomes a big deal. I don't know what else they might have been thinking, to be frank, but it looks like there was widespread evidence of abuse by this police officer, by the chief, actually, and it was something that city officials knew about for a significant amount of time, and they tried to keep it quiet, tried to keep it under wraps. Well, Salt Lake Tribune pieced together some seemingly unrelated stories of one officer's sexual assault of a woman, and that, in the end, uncovered a lawsuit. Saratoga Springs Police Chief, Assistant Police Chief, and City Manager are accused of dismissing a woman's complaints and requests for help after an officer, she says, sexually assaulted her in 2019. The suit alleges city officials knew of this, and again, the Salt Lake Tribune has some proof of that, effectively covering up the alleged attacks. And interestingly enough, this is a federal lawsuit involving Saratoga Springs officer Kevin Norris specifically, but also, again, naming the chief of police, assistant chief, and city manager as folks who knew about this and worked to help Officer Norris, who resigned in 2022, cover up a sexual assault that the woman is accusing him of. It definitely caused some ripples in the city. Responses from the city have been quiet today, but the complaint, again, uncovered by the Salt Lake Tribune by researching other stories, not knowing they were headed in this direction, alleges that Saratoga Springs Police Chief Andrew Burton and City Manager Mark Christensen, who are, again, listed as defendants in the suit, were not only aware of it, but, quote, regularly updated on the sexual assault case, and states that Christensen, quote, supported Robertson's efforts to run the woman out of the city. Called an abuse of power by the woman's attorneys in the lawsuit. Check it out. The alleged assault and more detailed in the Salt Lake Tribune story, including alleged in the lawsuit, an officer telling this woman, another officer telling this woman, make all the accusations you want. No one will ever believe you. That's ugly. Those are your headlines with Smooth Jazz. We'll be back with more right after your local headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:37. The news brought to you by Roof Rescue. Idaho Governor Brad Little has announced proposals for property tax relief, education funding, and efforts to fight the influx of illegal fentanyl during his annual State of the State address. The Republican governor's speech, where he outlines his top policy priorities, kicks off the state's legislative session each year. Little said on Monday property tax relief should come in the form of increased state funding for local infrastructure, lifting some of the burden that local governments might otherwise place on property owners. He also announced a proposed scholarship program for graduating Idaho high school students and increased funding to fight the influx of fentanyl. The Outdoor Retailer Trade Show is back in Salt Lake City this week after a 4-year run in Denver. But missing at the massive expo are industry giants boycotting the show over Utah's stance on public land issues. Companies including Patagonia, REI, and the North Face are staying away from the show based on the same concerns that forced the show to leave Utah in 2018 after decades in the state, that Utah does not deserve to reap the economic benefits from the show because of Republican politicians' opposition to conservation efforts to protect national monuments and public lands. The Utah State Aggie men's basketball team is back home tonight for a late starting game at 8:30 in the Spectrum as they face the Wyoming Cowboys. And KVNU's Game Day, Al Lewis will be talking about it with former Aggie great Jalen Moore starting at 7:30 this evening. And then Al will be back with the gang right after the game's conclusion at about 10:30 this evening. KVNU News Time is 4:39.
This is David from Roof Rescue. A roof is not something most people think about until they notice a leak on the ceiling. This time of year, fluctuation in temperatures, along with rain, snow, and ice, can do a number on your roof. If you notice these leaks, they won't go away on their own and are oftentimes a sign that the roof has reached the beginning of the end of its life. Call Roof Rescue for a free analysis, diagnosis, and estimate. Let's fix those leaks and keep you dry this winter. Call 435-999-4268 or visit roofrescueusa.com. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
KVNU weather for for tonight. Rain this evening, then snow and rain after midnight. Accumulation around 1 inch, low around 30. 40% chance of snow in the morning on Wednesday. Mostly cloudy, mid-30s for the high. And then partly cloudy Wednesday night. Colder, low around 20. Becoming partly sunny on Thursday, upper 30s for the high. It's been to 38 for the high today with our couple inches of snow and rain mixed in. Came out to 58/100ths of an inch this morning in the rain bucket. Right now, we have 33 at KVNU. Don't spend $20 to $30 or more at a dry cleaner when for just a few dollars, Mount Logan Laundry can tackle those extra large loads with ease. Located at 5th East, 9th North in Logan, and also 1st East and 7th South in Brigham City, Mount Logan Laundry. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is financial advisor Clayton McMurdy from Edward Jones, bringing you the closing financial report for Tuesday, January 10th. Markets closed higher today, adding to gains made in early January. Tech stocks outperformed more value-oriented names as investor concerns around Fed policy show signs of easing. The market rally over the last couple of days has increased hopes that a soft landing scenario for the economy is becoming more likely as forward-looking inflation indicators point to disinflationary pressures. A host of data, including wage growth, French and German inflation, and softening energy prices that arrived all last week, all contributed to investor confidence around the trend of inflation and the speed at which inflation can move toward the Fed's 2% target. In equity markets today, the Dow closed up 188 points at 33,706. The NASDAQ was up 107 points at 10,743, and the S&P was up 27 points at 3,919. In bond markets, 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 3.61%, and in commodity markets, the price of crude oil was up 39 cents at $75.02, and the spot price of gold was up $4.40 at $1,882.20. This has been today's financial market report brought to you by Clayton McMurdy of Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 1309 North Main Street in Logan. If you'd like any additional information or current stock prices, feel free to give us a call at 435-753-0537. You can also visit any of our 7 locations here in Cache Valley or online at edwardjones.com.
It's the January closeout and clean out time at UNI Furniture with lots of really good values store-wide. Pick out a chair, lift chairs, accent chairs, rocker recliners. Choose options like power or manual, fabric or leather, chairs with lumbar support and heat. They've also picked up lots of Maluk products at closeout prices. A Queen hybrid mattress is $489, normally twice that. Queen headboards less than $100, and while they last, Queen adjustable bases $199. For 93 years, a family-owned business where you'll like their honest approach. There's always a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
Elements has delicious lunch specials, 2 for $30, or the new soup, salad, and bread special for just $10. It's tasty and quick. Elements lunch menu is full of scrumptious items prepared with a personal touch. Wood-fired pizzas are an excellent choice that include barbecue chicken and the bee's knees. The fresh battered halibut fish and chips with seasoned fries is always a hit. And don't forget the fan favorite Munster burger, casual or professional. Open Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 8 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11:30 to 9 p.m. Visit theelementsrestaurant.com for reservations today.
It's John and Emily with Zero Res. If you've been putting off getting your carpets cleaned, there's no better time to call than now.
Call today and get on the schedule in January and get a 4th room clean for free when you mention the station.
This sale only happens once a year, so call now, 435-554-1050, or schedule online and use promo code FREEROOM.
That's 435-554-1050. Zero Res. Backwards or forwards, it's the right way to clean.
Do you know a champion in our community? Nominate them for the KVNU Above and Beyond Salute. Every Friday morning at 8:30, we'll spotlight a firefighter, law enforcement officer, healthcare worker, or other deserving individual and give them a $40 gift card to Firehouse Subs. Submit your nominations for the Above and Beyond Salute by visiting kvnutalk.com. Help us recognize the champions in our communities. The Above and Beyond Salute, sponsored by Firehouse Subs on News Talk KVNU, the voice of Northern Utah.
I will be right by your side.
Women can have it all.
including heart attacks. But symptoms like jaw pain, nausea, unusual fatigue, dizziness, and backache are often different and more subtle than for a man. The fact is, heart disease is the #1 killer of women. Know the signs. Learn more at getheartchecked.org. From Women's Heart Alliance, in partnership with Women Heart.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. This is, this is a never-ending discussion for Utah as things evolve and change, and it gets even more complex to think about if you strip the politics from it. The politics around this kind of oversimplify things, as politics and politicians are wanting to do. But this is an amazing profile in the Salt Lake Tribune of... the short version of the whole story is the Department of Energy is pouring millions into something called the Forge Project. And this is a project happening just outside of Milford, Utah, which is in Beaver County. Literally middle of nowhere. If you look at this on a map, it is way out. And it is... The goal of this is to speed up clean energy of a different type, and this is geothermal. Why are they pouring so much into this? Well, it was part of some funding that was approved by Congress actually quite a while ago, but this is new funding for this effort here in Utah. Forge, by the way, stands for Frontier Observatory for Geothermal Research. I have no idea why Frontier's in there, but it's 10 miles north of Milford, Utah, and it is not very big. There's some photos in the Tribune story, but it's a pad, a drill pad, they call it, and a handful of buildings, smaller buildings. And it sits on what is currently Utah state-owned land, technically. Utah has this SITLA, it's called, Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. This is public land that is owned by the state that is planned one day to be sold for school money or traded for other land, which can then be monetized for school money. There are a lot of different things SITLA can do with this, but it's not a lot of public land here in Utah. But it's been a pretty reliable funding system for education. And so they will lease the land as well to make money for schools here in Utah. And this is one of the cases where that's happened. The U.S. Department of Energy has set up this, what they're calling the foremost laboratory for enhanced geothermal research. And the University of Utah is overseeing the scientific aspect of this. 7 years ago, by the way, the University of Utah won a grant. Their proposal won a national competition, competing with several others for this Department of Energy grant to get the funding to set up a geothermal laboratory. And the reason that this one won was partly design and partly how far along in the research the University of Utah already was, but also because Utah, several factors were considered, and Utah has been, not as much as a couple of other states, but significantly still affected by the decline of coal, meaning that, jobs have been extinct. We've got entire communities here in Utah in trouble due to the implosion of a market for coal. And that was a slow implosion, but a lot of people, especially Garfield County, I think is a good example. They finally shifted gears, but they just held on to that one. The writing was on the wall. Whether you fought it politically or whether you rallied against environmentalists or called them names on the internet, the writing was on the wall that the world was moving away from these dirtier fuels. So regardless of what happened here in the U.S., if the global market for coal implodes, then coal's done, and that's basically what happened. It took longer than in other parts of the world here in the U.S. for that reality to settle in, and now that leaves us in a situation where we're scrambling to play catch up. And Utah, when it comes to geothermal energy, Utah is. This has always boggled me that we haven't done more with this as a state. I mean, it's right there. It's entirely renewable, and the whole challenge this laboratory, by the way, is aiming to understand is how do you produce enough electricity from geothermal to make it a viable source of energy. Right now, by the way, near Roosevelt Hot Springs, there's a geothermal plant that already exists that's been producing electricity for about 30,000 homes, and it's been doing that for more than 10 years. This same plant has, though, hundreds of cubic miles of hot granite below the surface, and one of the challenges is that occasionally there's no water flowing through it, so there's no geothermal activity. The granite's still hot with the magma sitting right underneath it, but without the water there's no steam, there's no geothermal activity that can be used to generate, to turn a turbine or generate electricity. And the accessible water that does exist is already being used for drinking and agriculture. And once it's been used for this geothermal, it can't be used for drinking and agriculture because as it passes over the hot granite, it collects too many naturally occurring minerals, and it's just not feasible to turn it back into drinking water at that point. It has to go through the ground and come up a different way and be used elsewhere. But the water can be used for basically a recycling of geothermal. So that's what they're researching outside of Beaver, in the outskirts of Beaver County, outside of Milford, Utah. How can this be most economically done? We know geothermal serves as an energy source. It's renewable, but how do we get it to where it's generating enough to do the job? And what does that mean as far as upgrades and changes that might be needed when it comes to our power grid, which we're also quite behind on here in Utah, keeping that up to date. So these are some of the challenges that they're looking into. And Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm said this new investment in Forge will serve as a flagship of EGS research and can help find the most innovative, cost-effective solutions and accelerate work towards wind-scale geothermal deployment, meaning getting geothermal up to a point where it's generating as much, if not more, than wind and solar already are. And the idea behind this is just really cool. They've drilled they will drill 2 deep wells, more than a mile, down into this solid granite that, again, as they get deeper and deeper and closer to where the granite is sitting right on top of actual magma, 400 degrees, the stone, the granite is at 400 degrees when they get down there about a mile. And then what they do is they pump cold water down one well. So they drill 2 holes a mile deep, pump cold water down one well, and then it comes out hot water and steam, and that's pulled up through the second well. And then one of the wells, by the way, one well's already drilled. The second they'll be drilling as soon as they're able to in 2023, and which should be just a couple of months. And they drill down through the solid rock. The water that goes down comes back up hot, and then traditional technology is used to sort of capture that. They use technology that's very similar to a controversial method of energy extraction called hydraulic fracking. But where it's only being used for 2 pumps, it's not expected to have any negative effect on nearby aquifers or other water sources, which is what's made fracking by private companies controversial, ruining the aquifers, poisoning them. So it won't be an issue with this one. They're only drilling the 2 holes using this fracking method. And then, so what's the challenge? Why all this research needed if we know how to do this? This is the deepest that they've gone. It's also the theory here is it's a more reliable and continuous source of geothermal energy, going this deep and using this superheated granite that is touching magma but hasn't quite turned into it yet, and that it will provide pressure levels high enough that you could turn turbines at a rate geothermal has never been used for previously, to generate more electricity than geothermal ever has at a single extraction, for lack of a better word, point. It's honestly amazing stuff, but what blows me away about this is it's none of this is new technology. We're just slow getting to employing it creatively because of our oversimplified political battles that have held us back for 20 years while partisans bicker and fight. This not at all new technology being used in a different and innovative way could prove to be not only a huge source of energy in Utah, but also a return of all the jobs that have been lost as the decline of coal has racked certain communities in Utah. Because this can be done in many, many places. The training required to, take someone who has experienced maybe mining coal and turn them into someone who experienced it operating a geothermal plant is minimal, and the pay is better. We should have been doing this 10 years ago, but we were too busy having these silly political fights. It was jaw-dropping. I'm reading through this, all this money, all this research, all these cool potential results of it, and then you get to the end of the article and they tell you how it's actually going to be done, and you realize we literally could have been doing this 20, 30 years ago. None of the technology involved is new. It's literally they finally just got over the political hurdles enough to have the funding to do it. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemy. Check it out, though. A fascinating story of how geothermal extraction may literally, depending on the result of this Utah Forge project, be the future of energy, not only in Utah, but of energy jobs in Utah as well. Definitely a ray of light for many communities. I'll link to it on our Facebook page, and we'll be back right after this.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru, with Morris Columbus Travel and Delta Vacations, with double discounts on your air and hotel packages to the sunny beaches of Hawaii and Mexico, to Europe and the Caribbean, and you saved like never before. And for the best travel deals on the planet, give us a call at Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
We start each new year filled with hope and prosperity for things to come. At Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology, it's no different. Dr. Daines is so grateful to get to call Cache Valley home and continue to offer his services to the wonderful people that live in our beautiful valley. He wants to help you start your new year off right by improving your hearing, which over the course of time will help improve your quality of life. Give them a call at 435-753-4327 or 753-HERE to schedule an appointment, or you can visit them online at CacheValleyHearing.com.
Last little bit on this story. We'll move on in hour two, but a listener with a question about the stream bed access issue that is ahead before the state Supreme Court. Listener says, why doesn't the legislature just clarify this in statute? Well, I mean, that's how we got here. They did. They said everyone owns the waterways, and that includes the stream beds. They said that in law. And there should be I think in statute, I believe the way it's phrased in statute is a reasonable easement for waterway access, which obviously open to interpretation, but understood to mean, if you've got to get out and step around a fence or a boulder in the middle of the river, be respectful about it if you're getting out on private land, and get right back in the water. And some private property owners are that's too much even. So they challenged this, and that's how we ended up in court. Again, the state Supreme Court has not said a word about when they might rule But if it's during legislative session, expect an emergency bill to respond from the legislature. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. Hour 2 right after this here on KVNU Logan.